Welcome back. Today we're going to tackle something that, let's be honest, can look a little intense: a company's financial report. But here's the thing: inside all those numbers, there's a story. We're going to decode the latest report from the tire giant Apollo Tyres and figure out what it's really telling us about where their business is at and where it's headed. So, let's jump right in.
And I mean really look under the hood. Not the shiny marketing stuff or the press releases. We're talking about digging into the raw data that shows exactly where every single rupee comes from and where it goes. That's what we're going to do today.
You know, when you first crack open one of these financial filings, it can feel like you're staring at just a dense, tangled mess of code and numbers. It's all in there, sure, but it's not exactly a page-turner. So our job here is to untangle all of this and find the clear, compelling story that's hiding inside. Okay, so our case study today is Apollo Tyres. We're going to be focusing mainly on the report from the second quarter of 2024. But here's the key. To really get what's happening now, we need some context. So we're also going to pull in some data from a few years back to see how the story has actually evolved over time. And hey, if you're new to all this, don't sweat it. Think of a financial report like this. It's basically just a personal budget, but for a massive, massive company. It shows the money coming in, the money going out, and what's left in the bank at the end. That's the simple story we're going to uncover today.
So every financial story, no matter how complicated, starts right at the top. This is what's called the top line, and it's pretty simple. It's the grand total of all the money a company brought in from selling its products. In this case, that means selling a whole lot of tires.
And for the second quarter of 2024, that number is, get this, 6,437 crore rupees. That is a huge figure. Right away, it gives you a sense of the incredible scale of this whole operation. This number right here, this is our starting point.
But all that cash doesn't just come from one place, right? Apollo is a global company. Now, just to give you an idea of that spread, take a look at this breakdown. It's from a few years back, 2018, but it shows you how their operations are spread all across Asia, Europe, and beyond. It proves that success isn't just tied to one market. This thing is a global machine.
Okay, bringing in over 6,400 crore rupees. That's impressive, but that's only half the story. The next chapter is all about the cost. Because to make and sell that many tires, you have to spend money. A lot of money. This is the reality check of running a giant manufacturing business.
This chart breaks it down for us for Q2 2024. And that biggest slice is really telling. A massive 55% of their expenses is just the cost of materials. We're talking rubber, steel, all the chemicals. Then you've got employee costs at 13%. So think about it like this. For every rupee Apollo makes, more than half of it goes right back out the door just to buy the raw stuff needed to make a tire. That also tells you that profits are super sensitive to the global prices of these materials.
All right, and this brings us to the climax of our financial story: profit. After you've counted up all the money that came in and you've subtracted all the money that went out, what is actually left? This is the number that really tells you if the business was truly successful during that time. And the journey to get to that final profit number, it's actually pretty straightforward. You start with the profit before the government takes its share, you subtract the taxes, and whatever's left is what we call net profit.
So, for Q2 2024, after paying for all those materials, all the salaries, and everything else, Apollo was left with a profit before tax of almost 399 crore rupees. That is a very healthy number, but we're not quite at the finish line yet.
Next up, taxes. You gotta pay them. In this quarter, the company's tax bill came out to just over 101 crore rupees, and that gets subtracted directly from that pre-tax profit we just saw.
And there it is, the bottom line. The net profit for the second quarter of 2024 was 297.4 crore rupees. This, right here, is the number that really matters to investors and to analysts. It is the ultimate measure of how the company did for the quarter.
But hang on, is 297 crore a good number? Is it a great number? I mean, on its own, it's kind of hard to say. A single quarter is just one snapshot in time. To really, truly understand the story, we need context. We have to see the trend. So let's compare this to where they were a few years ago. Okay, check this out. Here we see the quarterly revenue from back in Q3 2018, right next to our latest quarter, Q2 2024. Just look at that jump, from around 4,700 crores to over 6,400 crore. That is a huge increase in the amount of business they're doing. The top line has gotten much, much bigger. But here's the real question. Did all that growth actually make it to the bottom line? And the answer is a big, clear yes. The net profit grew from 198 crore in that 2018 quarter all the way up to our 297 crore number today. So this tells us they're not just selling more, they're also keeping more of that money as actual profit. That's the sign of a healthy business.
So, what's the big picture here? What's the takeaway? Well, by translating all those dense data tables into a simple story, income, expenses, and profit, and by adding that crucial context of time, we can now see a really clear trend. Apollo Tyres hasn't just grown its revenue, they've also managed their costs well enough to become even more profitable.
So, see? Looking at financial data doesn't have to be intimidating at all. We just saw that every single report tells a story. It starts with the top line, which is all the money coming in, and it ends with the bottom line, which is the profit that's left over. For Apollo, that story is one of serious growth. But the biggest lesson? Context is absolutely everything. A single number doesn't mean much until you compare it to something.
And that leads me to one last thought. These numbers, they tell a fantastic story about the recent past. But the road ahead is changing fast. Electric vehicles require totally different, more advanced tires. So the big question now is, how will a legacy company like Apollo adapt to that? Will the heavy investment needed for all that new tech change the profitable story we just uncovered? Well, that is the next chapter that the numbers will eventually tell. Thanks for tuning in.